This week is about emotional truth, unexpected shifts, and finally breaking a cycle that has been running your ass in circles. We're starting the week with disruption in love, money, relationships, plans, and expectations, followed by a powerful Cancer new moon that is dragging old feelings, family patterns, unresolved conversations, and emotional needs straight back to the surface. But this is not happening so you can repeat the past. It's happening so you can recognize the damn pattern and respond differently. Now, by the end of the week, the energy moves from confusion into clarity, discipline, and intentional action, which means Spirit is not just exposing what needs to change, but Spirit is asking, what the hell are you finally going to do about it? I feel like I need something. You tried to fight, but you my brain is racing for my heart is racing for clarity. Listen, I'm Scott Santana, better known as Aubrey, over here on Aligning Souls, where we align you back to your highest soul so you can step into your highest timeline. Before we get into this week's astrology, let me say this right now. If you have been watching collective readings after collective readings, trying to force a general message to answer a very specific question about your relationship, your career, your money, your spiritual path, or whatever the hell is keeping you up at night, it may be time for you to stop collecting messages and actually get some personal clarity, okay? Because collective can confirm the energy. They can help you understand the season that you're moving through, but they cannot replace a reading that is specifically centered around you, your energy, your natal chart, your situation, and the questions that you personally need answered. So if you already know that you need something deeper than a general horoscope, then go to thealignmedsouls.com and book your personal name with me. Stop sitting there hoping I accidentally say your full government name and explain your entire situation in a collective video. Spirit may speak through a collective, but sometimes the next step is admitting that you need direct guidance. Again, look at thealignmedsouls.com. Link is in the description. So let's get into the energy for this week, because when I tell you, it's a lot going on. It's definitely a lot going on. Okay. This is the horoscope, the weekly horoscope for July 13th through Sunday, July 19th, 2026. And we're going to begin with the overall collective energy for everybody. And then we are going to move through all 12 rising signs. Okay. Beginning with Aries and ending with Pisces rising. Okay. And I need you to listen to me on this part. Listen to me. Okay. Your rising sign is what is going to be most important, because that is how your chart is affected by these weekly transit readings, okay? Your sun sign can absolutely provide an additional message. Your moon sign may speak to how you are processing everything emotionally, but your rising sign establishes the houses in your personal natal chart. That tells us which specific areas of your life these planets are currently activating, okay? That's why one person may experience the Cancer new moon, the relationships, while somebody else experiences the career, their mental health. That sky is not landing in the same part of everybody's chart. So let's see your rising sign first, then you come back and listen to your okay? Don't sit here, listen to all 12 signs, and then try to collect everybody else's problems. Like, some of y'all are already carrying enough shit that does not belong to you, okay? So getting into the collective of it all. These are the transits for the week, right? This week is asking us to confront a pattern that is repeated for long enough, okay? The astrology begins with discomfort, disruption, emotional pressure, and unexpected changes. But as the week continues, we move into a powerful opportunity to consciously respond. So it's changing rather than immediately falling back into our usual coping mechanisms, right? So Monday begins with Venus squaring Uranus while the moon squares Saturn, okay? There we go. Monday begins with Venus squaring Uranus while the moon squares Saturn. Venus is currently moving through Virgo, and Venus in Virgo wants things to make sense, right? It wants dependability, consistency, order, usefulness, effort, and tangible proof. Venus in Virgo doesn't simply want somebody to tell us that they love us, but Venus in Virgo wants them to show up, communicate properly, remember what the hell they said they were going to do, right? And stop making everything unnecessarily complicated. But Uranus in Gemini is unpredictable, okay? Because Uranus wants freedom, movement, experimentation, new information, different choices. And trust me, because I know all about Uranus, okay? I know all about it, okay, baby? Them plot twists will have you questioning your whole entire existence, but that is the point, especially with it being in Gemini. It is dealing with, communication, thought, and we're also dealing with Mercury retrograde, which is the ruler of Gemini. So it's just, if communication and technology and all of that is all over the place, it is for a reason, okay? It's about thinking outside of the existing arrangement, okay? And when Venus squares Uranus, something involving relationships, money, values, attraction, standards, or expectations may suddenly shift. Somebody could behave differently, a plan could change at the last minute. Maybe you discover information that suddenly changes how you feel about a person or a situation. Something you previously wanted could stop feeling as desirable once you recognize what it would actually cost you. And this doesn't automatically mean that something terrible is happening. Uranus disrupts what is becoming stagnant, okay? So sometimes Uranus takes away your ability to remain comfortable in a situation that stopped being aligned a long ass time ago. Okay. Now, the moon squaring Saturn on Monday can make that disruption feel a lot heavier because emotions may encounter a wall. You might feel rejected. You might feel restricted. You might feel unsupported, disappointed, or forced to just simply face the reality of a situation without the emotional cushioning that you normally use. Some people may withdraw. Some people may become defensive. Others may try to control every little detail because uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. But Monday's energy is not asking you to panic. It's asking you to pay attention. What becomes uncomfortable when you cannot control the outcome? What relationship only feels secure when the other person behaves exactly as expected? What plan are you gripping so tightly that you have no space to recognize a better possibility? Then on Tuesday, we have the new moon in Cancer, followed by the new moon entering Leo. This new moon centers home, family, belonging, emotional security, vulnerability, nourishment, intuition, question of where we genuinely feel safe. But this new moon is happening alongside Mercury retrograde in Cancer. That means we are not walking into this new beginning with a completely blank slate. The past is in the room. Old emotions are in the room. Previous conversations, family patterns, memories, disappointments, and unmet emotional needs may all be sitting at the damn table with us. This new moon is not necessarily telling everybody to start something that has never existed before. For many of us, this is about revisiting something with greater emotional awareness. It could be a conversation that needs to happen again. It might be an emotional truth you were not prepared to acknowledge the first time. It may be an old dream returning after you abandoned it during survival mode, right? It could be a home, family, relationship, a personal decision that needs to be approached differently now that you understand yourself differently. This is not about blindly going backward. Mercury retrograde does not mean every ex is your soulmate and every old opportunity deserves another chance. Sometimes the past just returns so that you can finally stop romanticizing it, right? So to put it into plain text, yeah, the person that got away, they were probably meant to get away, but like maybe they come back and show you why they got away so you stop thinking about them. Okay. The question is not simply why is this happening again? The question is, who am I now that it is happening again, right? Some of y'all, it might very well be like a lover that pops back up. Okay. Maybe somebody that you was like head over heels in love with. Maybe shit never got the blossom or bloom. And then now, just because they pop back up, it doesn't mean, oh, now it's time for us to be in a relationship. Ooh, the guy that was no contact is suddenly back. Am I like, girl, fuck all of that? Maybe they're popping back up because the universe is trying to get you to see how much you've grown and where you would have been had you and him, you know? So once the moon moves into Leo, we begin to crave expression, recognition, confidence, warmth, movement. Cancer energy may help us understand what we feel, but Leo wants us to do something with that understanding, right? Leo doesn't want the truth hidden in a private journal forever. Leo wants us to live like we actually believe what we just discovered about ourselves. Now, Wednesday is gonna offer. There we go. Wednesday is going to offer some forward movement. Okay, the moon sextiles Mars and trine Saturn's. And this can help us channel emotion into mature and intentional action. We are not simply reacting for the sake of releasing pressure. We have an opportunity to respond in a way that produces an actual result. Uranus also is going to sextile Neptune on Wednesday, right? This is a longer collective aspect, connecting innovation with intuition, information with imagination, and awakening with spiritual consciousness, right? We may begin to see new possibilities that previously seemed unrealistic. This energy can produce technological shifts, create breakthroughs, spiritual awakenings, unusual ideas, and major changes in how we communicate, create, connect, understand reality. Right? Not even just on a personal level, but globally, right? But on a personal level, this is where the thing that disrupted your plan may begin to reveal a different path. Now, on Thursday is going to bring a void moon before the moon enters Virgo. This is not the day to necessarily force everything into immediate completion. The void moon may create delays, uncertainty, or a feeling that things are temporarily suspended. Once the moon enters Virgo, the focus shifts towards editing, organizing, correcting, cleaning, planning, and paying attention to what needs practical improvement. But do not allow Virgo energy to turn one imperfect detail into evidence that your entire life is falling apart. Fix what is actually broken. Stop inventing additional problems because your nervous system does not know what to do with a quiet moment. Now, on Friday, the Virgo moon squares Uranus. That can create frustration when plans, schedules, conversations, devices, work responsibilities, or other people refuse to cooperate, right? It's just one of them days where it's just like technology just keeps giving out or communication just ends up breaking down, right? But Friday also brings Uranus trine Pluto, which is a major outer planet shift. Telling you now, Friday is probably going to be a horrible day for a lot of people, especially with the transits happening earlier on in the morning. Expect a lot of delays. Expect a lot of delays. Like, it's very much given, I got to be to work at 9 a.m. I'll leave the house 2 hours early intentionally, and somehow I still end up 3 hours late to work because it was buses jammed, packed, subways jam packed, subway delays, car accident, like very much all of that. So I would say on Friday, plan ahead, take your time, and just understand every delay. It is what it is. Okay. It is what it is. Uranus in Gemini is transforming information, communication, media, technology, education, transportation, and how quickly ideas travel. Pluto in Aquarius is transforming community, power, influence, social systems, networks, audiences, and our relationship with the collective. Together, these planets are initiating change that are it's initiating changes that are much bigger than one inconvenient week. Okay. So it's not going to make sense now, but eventually maybe it will, right? Personally, this can show where changing your perspective or using your voice or accessing new information or making one brave decision begins to transform your long-term future. Okay. Now on Saturday, the moon enters Libra, bringing relationships, balance, and focus. We may want peace, but Libra energy can become so committed to avoiding conflict that it avoids honesty as well. Real peace does not require you to pretend nothing is wrong. Real harmony is built through truth, accountability, reciprocity, and a willingness to address imbalance. Okay. And then finally, on Sunday is going to give us the moon sextile Jupiter and Mars sextile Saturn. The moon connecting with Jupiter can increase hope, confidence, generosity, emotional openness, and faith. Mars connecting with Saturn gives us the discipline to turn an idea into a plan. Mars says move. Saturn says move with purpose, right? Because Mars is all about rage, anger, passion, right? Movement. Saturn is more about boundaries, control. So it's like, yeah, you can move, but move with purpose, move with discipline, move with intention, right? It's not reckless energy. Okay. If Mars is the fuck boy, then Saturn is the long-term husband, right? So those two together, it's like, okay, the long-term husband that you meet quickly, right? Like what do they call it? Like first love at first sight, love at first sight that ends up being your forever, basically, right? It's not reckless energy, and it's not about doing everything overnight or committing so hard overnight, but it's more about just taking the next mature, intentional, sustainable step. Okay. So now we got to get into the collective reading. The collective message. The collective oracle that we have is never ending story, which is crazy that is coming out for the collective period. Cause it's just, I feel like we are all kind of like at the end of one cycle, trying desperately to go into another. Like everyone's chapter is different, and again, that's just why your natal chart is so important, right? Some people are at the end of one chapter in terms of living and relocating. Others are in one chapter at the end of a relationship, maybe going into another, or at the end of a friendship going into another, at the end of a career going into another. But it's kind of like everyone's just in that transition phase, right? So let's talk about it, because some of y'all are tired of the story while simultaneously waking up every day and reading from the exact same script, right? The never-ending story represents repeated emotional patterns, familiar disappointments, mental loops, self-defeating narratives, victim consciousness, shame, and the exhausting belief that nothing ever truly changes. And this is a story of people always leave me. Nothing ever works out for me. I always have to struggle. I never get chosen. Every time I trust somebody, they disappoint me. Whenever something good happens, something comes along and ruins it, right? Like that's just the energy where everyone is collectively. And so now your feelings may be based on real experiences, because I'm not gonna hold you. This is a week where shit is going to happen. Shit is going to hit the fucking fan, and you're gonna have to pivot. You're gonna have to figure it out. You're gonna have to make do with what you got, and it's all for a reason. Not necessarily what you want to hear in the middle of it. Nobody gives a fuck about the rainbow in the middle of a goddamn storm. But I mean, it is what it is. That's what this week is. Okay. And so a lot of your feelings may be based on real experiences, especially the shit that comes up this week to test you. And Spirit is not asking you to gaslight yourself or pretend that painful shit did not or doesn't happen, right? But there is a difference between acknowledging your history and continuously using your history to predict your future. There's a difference between saying, this happened to me, and building your identity around, this is the only thing that can ever happen to me, right? Mercury retrograde, besides this Cancer new moon, may bring an emotional storyline back into the play, right? Back into the surface. You may remember something. Maybe somebody may return. Maybe a family issue may resurface, right? Maybe a familiar fear may be triggered by a new situation, right? And of course, obviously, it all depends where you have Cancer in your chart. Just off the top of my head, the first house, it could be identity issues. Second house, it could be money, worth, value, right? Third house, communication. Fourth house, home. Um, you know, especially dealing with the mother, right? Family wounds with the mother. Fifth house, it could be, dating. It could be children. Sixth house, it could be work. It could be health. Seventh house, it could be how secure you feel in a relationship, or just your one-on-one relationships, close relationships. Eighth house, joints, debts, life and death, transformation. Ninth house, spirituality, higher learning, education. 10th house, career, public image. 11th house, networking, social networking, friends. 12th house, the hidden unconscious, right? Spirit is asking you to notice what story you immediately begin telling yourself. Are you responding to what is actually happening right now, or are you responding to every painful thing that the current situation reminds you of? Are you giving a person, the present person, a chance to reveal who they are, or have they already been sentenced for what somebody else did? Right? And some of you may think that I'm just talking about like in a relationship. This is period. This is period. That's not the only time that we do that. Like, sure, okay, you might deal with a fuck nigga, fuck girl, whatever. And then, you might hold the next one responsible. Oh, this one broke my heart. So now moving forward, I'm going to move like this. I'm going to have these type of quote unquote boundaries, right? But like we tend to have those same boundaries or put up those same walls in any and every situation. It doesn't just have to be love, right? So there's going to be things that test, how are you responding this time around? Like, are you responding like the last time because you assume that this time is going to act out just the same, even though, some of the variables are different? Are you giving the present person a chance to reveal who they are? Are you recognizing a genuine red flag, or are you sabotaging, whatever this is because it feels so uncomfortable or it reminds you of something similar to a past wound, right? Now, on the other hand, are you spiritually trying to convince yourself that the same unhealthy situation will magically produce a different result, right? Because it is all about discernment as well, right? So the never ending story is not always about being too pessimistic. Sometimes it could be about remaining too damn hopeful about something that is repeatedly showing you its limitations. Trust me, I'm literally literally going through that right now, right? So sometimes it's just about like addressing what is like literally right in front of you and just moving as is, right? Because people don't ever talk about that. Discernment is definitely a huge thing when it comes to spirituality. And I feel like a lot of people are either on either sides of it. It's like either you're extremely too hopeful and you put everything on God and on spirit, or you are, extremely too pessimistic. And it's just like, oh, woe is me. Nothing ever goes right. And, faith isn't complete without works, So some of y'all keep saying, I know there's potential, but potential is not a relationship. Potential is not payment. Potential is not accountability. Potential is not a contract. Potential is not consistency. At a certain point, constantly recognizing somebody's potential while ignoring their behavior becomes your role in the in the repeating behavior and pattern, right? So this week is not punishing you by showing you the cycle again. It's giving you enough consciousness to make a different choice inside the cycle, right? Sometimes it's not even about necessarily what's going on. It's about how are you reacting, right? Because again, same triggers, same things, but like, what are you doing differently this time, right? So the story changes when your response changes. Maybe you speak instead of staying silent. Maybe you leave instead of waiting for one more disappointment. Maybe you stay present instead of ruining the moment or running the moment vulnerability appears, right? Maybe you ask for help instead of convincing yourself that you got to carry everything alone. Maybe you stop entertaining somebody simply because their inconsistency feels familiar. And again, I have to keep saying, I'm not just talking about love. Okay? This goes for all relationships, any kind of relationship, right? You know, whether you're looking to somebody that you're dating or a friend or a boss or a whatever, fill in the blank, right? Maybe you allow something good to develop without interrogating it every 5 minutes and accusing it of being too good to be true. This new moon says that there is a new emotional chapter available, but you cannot write a new chapter while constantly flipping back to reread the page where everything went wrong. So the overall message this week is this: the cycle is not more powerful than your consciousness, but awareness is not enough by itself. You cannot keep identifying the pattern, giving it a cute spiritual name, pulling a couple of oracle cards, and then doing nothing about it, but the same shit. At some point, healing has to become behavioral. So this week, ask yourself, what story have I repeated so many times that I now treat it as an unquestionable fact? What role do I consciously and continuously play inside that story? What choice would the healed version of me make now? And am I truly ready for a different outcome, or do I merely want the same situation to stop hurting me? Because those are not always the same thing. Okay. So now is where we are going to get into the messages for each individual rising sign. Like I said, definitely listen for your rising sign. You can listen for your sun and your moon too. I mean, I guess, but definitely your rising. Your rising is what's going to matter, is what's going to matter. Okay. And also, if you know your chart, that definitely helps as well. So, but definitely listen for your rising. So, starting off with the Aries, Aries rising. Okay. So, this week is going to bring a major reset to your home, your family life, living situation, emotional foundation, and relationship with safety. Okay. The Cancer moon and Mercury retrograde are activating your fourth house of home, of family, of childhood, right? This is one of the most private and emotionally vulnerable areas of your chart. You may be revisiting a family conversation, reconsidering where or how you live, processing memories from childhood, or recognizing how your upbringing continues to influence your emotional reactions today. Monday's Moon Saturn square can create tension between your private emotional needs and a version of yourself you felt pressured to present to the world. You may feel like you have to remain strong, productive, independent, or composed, and while something inside of you is asking to be held. And Aries, being strong does not mean refusing to admit when something hurts. Sometimes strength looks like recognizing that your current survival strategy is no longer compatible with the life that you're trying to create. Venus in your sixth house is also squaring Uranus in your fifth house, right? Your schedule, work, environment, health routine, communication, transportation, or daily responsibilities may become unpredictable. A message could change the plan. A conversation could disrupt your routine. You may realize that the way that you have been organizing your life does not leave enough space for your actual needs. So your oracle message is mending. Mending is about repair, forgiveness, reconciliation, emotional healing, consciously tending to something that has been damaged. But let me be clear: mending does not automatically mean reopening access to everybody who hurt you. Forgiveness does not require reunion. Healing does not require you to pretend the betrayal was acceptable. Sometimes mending means repairing the relationship, right? But sometimes it means repairing yourself after the relationship. This combined with all of the fourth house energy going on this week suggests that something connected to your emotional foundation is ready to heal. There could be an opportunity to have a different conversation with a family member. You know, maybe you finally understand why a particular child experience affected you so deeply. Maybe you may recognize that the home you have built internally is still being governed by rules created during a time when you did not feel safe. And Spirit is asking, whether you are willing to repair the part of yourself that expects every conflict to become abandonment or not. So some Aries risings may also need to make amends. Okay, everybody who hurt you is not the only person who ever made a mistake. If you reacted from anger, pride, fear, or defensiveness, this week may show you how to communicate with greater maturity. On Wednesday, the transits happening can help you speak with both courage and restraint. Sundays can, help you establish a new boundary, plan a communication pattern that is unsustainable. And then with Uranus connecting with Neptune and Pluto, and that transforming your voice and your identity and the community surrounding you. The more honestly that you speak, the less room there is for relationships built around an outdated version of you. Your direction this week is this: repair what can be repaired, release what cannot, and stop calling emotional avoidance independence. Taurus rising. This week is bringing a reset to your mind, communication, decisions, immediate environment, content, paperwork, in a way that you tell your own story. Okay. The Cancer new moon and Mercury retrograde activate your third house. A conversation may need to be revisited, right? You could reconsider a decision, rewrite something, return to an abandoned idea, reconnect with somebody in your immediate environment, or finally find the words for something that you have struggled to explain. Because Mercury is retrograde, making sure you are listening as carefully as you speak. Not every misunderstanding needs to become a permanent conflict, but not every misunderstanding is accidental either. Pay attention to what somebody repeatedly avoids clarifying. On Monday, Venus in your fifth house squares Uranus in your second house. So love, dating, pleasure, creativity, children, or entertainment may clash with money, security, confidence, or self-worth. You may suddenly want something that was not in the budget. A romantic dynamic could become unpredictable. A creative opportunity may force you to reconsider what your talent is worth. And some Taurus risings are being asked to stop spending money simply because buying something provides 5 minutes of emotional relief. I understand the package is cute. Trust me, listen. Taurus sun, Taurus moon. I get it. I get it. But the unfortunate thing is that our bank account, the wind changes direction before the landscape visibly transforms. Okay. That means that you may have sensed the change before you had concrete proof of what it will become. And you can notice that a relationship feels different. Your interests may be changing. A financial arrangement may no longer feel stable. The way you communicate or create may be evolving faster than your current plan can accommodate. Taurus is a fixed sign. You appreciate consistency. Once you have invested time, energy, or money in a sign, you prefer to know that that investment is not wasted. But staying committed to an outdated plan does not recover the investment. It only continues the expense. Okay. So a change in the wind does not necessarily mean disaster, but what it does mean is that the existing conditions cannot remain exactly as they are. So this week, Spirit is asking you to become more adaptable without abandoning your standards. Okay. You don't have to throw your entire life away because one thing changed, but you also cannot keep acting shocked every time life refuses to follow the 5-year plan that you created 3 versions of yourself ago. Right. You also got Uranus in your second house that's connecting with Neptune in your 12th and Pluto in your 10th. Financial changes, self-worth breakthroughs, intuitive realizations, career transformation, all of that is connected. A shift in what you believe you deserve can completely alter what you are willing to accept professionally and romantically. And your voice is also part of this transformation. The new moon may also help communicate a new price, a new standard, a new boundary, a new offer, a new idea or decision. But your direction is this: stop trying to preserve the original plan after Spirit has already changed the destination. Adjust yourselves and move. Gemini rising. Okay, this week is bringing a new beginning around money, income, possessions, stability, confidence, and self worth. The Cancer new moon and Mercury retrograde activate your second house. Okay, this is money, this is finances, this is self value, right? And so this could involve revisiting a budget, returning to an old source of income, negotiating what you are paid, reconsidering a purchase, or recognizing where emotional insecurity has shaped your financial decisions. Now, you may also be reflecting on what you genuinely value now. Something can be expensive and still not be valuable. Something could be familiar and still not provide security. Something could look successful and still cost you your peace. Monday's Venus-Uranus square happens between your fourth and first houses, so your need for comfort, privacy, family approval, or domestic stability may clash with your desire to be free and become a new version of yourself. People close to you may be surprised by a decision that you make. Maybe your living situation could require flexibility. You may suddenly feel uncomfortable in a role that previously helped you belong. And Gemini, you are changing. Okay, Uranus is literally in your first house, right? So you've been changing at least the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right? But you are not meant to remain unrecognizable, right? So your oracle message is peace. And it might sound soft and sweet until you realize how much bullshit that you have to stop. Like, stop the bullshit in order to actually experience it, right? Peace is not merely the absence of an argument. Peace is the absence of the internal war you create by continuously betraying your own knowing. Now, some Gemini risings have become so accustomed to chaos that calm feels suspicious. When nothing is actively going wrong, your mind starts searching the building for smoke, right? You overthink the message. You revisit the conversation. You inspect your tone. You mentally rehearse 6 possible disasters and call it preparation. But this new moon in your second house is asking you, Geminis, to build security from the inside out, okay? Because financial security matters, practical planning matters, but no amount of money can create peace if your nervous system is committed to expecting danger. So this may also be telling you that a conflict does not require any more energy. You may not get the apology, explanation, or closure that you originally wanted, but closure is not always something that another person hands you, okay? I used to say all the time, the only closure you need to worry about is that one on top of your head. Sometimes closure is the moment that you decide you are no longer available for the conversation to occupy your mind. Now, Uranus in your first house is sextile Neptune in your 11th and trine Pluto in your 9th. You're changing identity, your dreams, your community, and your worldview. But some relationships may naturally fall away because you only knew how to connect with the version of you who was constantly explaining, performing, or emotionally scrambling. So let them be confused, okay? You don't owe anybody a detailed press release every time your soul evolves, okay? Now, this moon's movement through Leo, Virgo, and Libra is going to highlight communication, home, creativity, and joy throughout the week. But by the weekend, you are going to feel lighter, and you are going to be way more open to doing something simply because it makes you happy. So your direction and your advice is this: stop treating peace like the boring intermission between crises. Peace is the life that you've been seeking, and that you've been asking Spirit to help you create. So Cancer risings, okay? This week is deeply personal, okay? Because it's literally all about y'all. Literally all about y'all, okay? The new moon is happening in your first house, okay? This is a reset involving your identity, physical body, image, confidence, direction, needs, and how you want to move through the world. But because Mercury is retrograding your sign, you may not feel completely certain about who you are becoming just yet, right? And that's okay. You don't have to immediately name, brand. Hold on, let me make sure this mic's still working because hello? There we go. You don't have to immediately name, brand, explain, and package every internal transformation. Sometimes identity begins as a private realization before it becomes a visible decision, right? Monday can feel especially intense. The Cancer moon is squaring Saturn in your 10th house, creating tension between your personal needs and your career, your reputation, your responsibilities, or just the public expectations of you, right? You may feel emotionally exposed while still being expected to perform. You may wonder whether choosing yourself will disappoint somebody who has benefited from your constant availability. Venus in your 3rd house also squares Uranus in your 12th house. A conversation, message, memory, sibling dynamic, or mental pattern may unexpectedly activate something hidden beneath the surface. You may say more than you intended. Someone else may reveal something surprising. A dream or intuitive hit could help you understand why a particular interaction affects you so strongly. So your oracle message is this: here and now. Spirit is asking you to come back to the present moment. Cancer, your memory is powerful. You remember feelings, you remember tones, disappointments, facial expressions, energy shifts, and moments other people forgot 5 minutes after they happened, right? That emotional memory can make you deeply intuitive, but it can also cause you to live with one foot in the past, constantly comparing the present to what previously hurt you. Then, when you are not in the past, you may be in the future. imagining what could go wrong, what could happen next, whether somebody will leave, whether the plan will work, or, wondering whether or not it's safe to relax. Meanwhile, the current moment is sitting there like, damn, are you ever coming home? So the message with here and now does not mean ignoring history or refusing to plan. It means recognizing that your power can only be exercised in the present, right? You cannot change the version of you who tolerated something 5 years ago. You cannot control the version of another person who may exist 6 months from now. You can only ask what is true today. What do I need today? What choice is available today? This first house new moon allows you to introduce yourself to yourself again. Not as the person you had to become for your family, not as the version of you created by a past relationship, not even as the past person everybody expects to nurture them while receiving crumbs in return. Who are you right now? Uranus in your 12th house is connecting with Neptune in your 10th and Pluto in your 8th. Subconscious patterns, career direction, intimacy, trust, shared money, and emotional vulnerability all are undergoing deep transformation. Something is becoming unconscious so it can stop secretly running your life. Your direction and advice is this: stop making today answer for everything that has happened yesterday. Be present long enough to meet the person that you have become. Leo risings, okay? This week is going to bring a new moon to your 12th house of endings, rest, solitude, conscious patterns, grief, spirituality, dreams, and private healing. Now, this is not necessarily the loud, visible beginning that Leo usually enjoys. Trust me, you're going to get a lot more of that this summer, but with Jupiter and Leo and the nodes shifting in the Leo, you're going to have your time, okay? But this is a quiet reset intentionally before you have that time. Okay, we got eclipse season coming up. Trust me, y'all gonna be the star. Don't worry, Leo, you're gonna be the star. Okay, but this is a quiet reset as of right now because something may need to end internally before the new external chapter can fully begin. Mercury retrograde in your 12th house may bring memories, dreams, former relationships, old fears, and buried emotions back into your awareness. You may need more sleep. Your intuition may become louder. You could feel less social or more selective about who has access to your energy. And that's not you disappearing. That's you recognizing that visibility without spiritual replenishment becomes performance. Venus in your second house squares Uranus in your 11th. Money, self-worth, friendships, audiences, collaborations, and future goals, all of that may become unpredictable. A friend could behave strangely around money. Group dynamic may shift. You may realize that a long-term dream no longer reflects what you truly value. So your oracle message is orphan. This speaks to rejection, abandonment, exclusion, loneliness, grief, and the feeling that you don't belong. Now, some Leo risings may feel disconnected from a friend group, right? Community, relationship, or a version of their future. Maybe you feel like other people are moving forward without you. You may be grieving the fact that a person or environment you once considered home no longer feels emotionally available. And because this is happening alongside a 12th house new moon, these feelings may connect to something much older than the current circumstance. A delayed response may activate every moment that you felt ignored. A relationship shift or a friendship shift rather, may remind you of being excluded in childhood. Somebody needing space may immediately become evidence that you are being abandoned. The feeling is real, okay, but the conclusion may not always be accurate. Spirit is asking you to distinguish between being temporarily alone and being permanently unwanted. You are not automatically orphaned because you no longer fit inside an old environment. Sometimes Spirit removes your sense of belonging before guiding you toward a more aligned community. Because had you remained comfortable, you would have kept shrinking yourself to stay included. Do not chase a seat at a table where your presence is merely tolerated. Do not audition for love. Do not turn yourself into entertainment so people will keep you around. And do not assume that every quiet season means your light has stopped working. Now, the moon enters Leo on Tuesday, helping you reconnect with yourself after the emotional heaviness of the new moon. Later in the week, the new moon is going to move through your money and communication houses, helping you ground and express what you have discovered. By Sunday, the Libra moon sextiles Jupiter in your sign, restoring hope, perspective, and confidence. Uranus connecting with Neptune and Pluto is transforming your communities, beliefs, and relationships. And so the people surrounding your next chapter may look very different from the people attached to your last one. Your directive is this: stop begging expired spaces to adopt the version of you that Spirit is trying to set free. It's literally that simple. Now, you can either do that on your own or, baby, these eclipses about to do it for you over these next 2 years. Good luck. Good luck. Okay. Virgo risings, okay? This week's Cancer new moon activates your 11th house of friendships, community, audiences, collaborations, long-term goals. What else? Social networks and your vision for the future. A new dream may be forming. You could reconnect with an old friend, audience, professional contact, or community. You may revisit a long-term plan that you abandoned because life became too demanding. But Mercury retrograde asks you to carefully examine whether this vision still aligns with who you are today. Do you truly want the goal, or do you want the validation you imagine will come along with achieving it? On Monday, Venus is in your first house, squaring off Uranus in your 10th. You may feel tension between who you are becoming and the professional identity, reputation, or role other people expect you to maintain. Your appearance, relationship standards, personal values, or desires may change suddenly. Career news may disrupt the personal plan. You could become frustrated with constantly having to appear polished while your actual needs remain unattended. Virgo, everybody does not need a perfect version of you. Some people just need the honest one. So your oracle message is this: time to go. Time to go. There it is. Something has reached an expiration date. Okay. It could be a friendship, a community, a job, collaboration, long-term goal, identity, routine, future plan. Time to go does not always necessarily mean a storming out or blocking everybody or deleting every account and posting of a dramatic quote about betrayal. No, sometimes leaving is quiet. Sometimes it's the moment you stop overinvesting. Sometimes it's allowing communication to naturally decrease instead of constantly resuscitating a connection. Sometimes it's admitting that the dream you once prayed for has become a cage. Virgo energy can remain too long because it sees what could be repaired, right? You notice the missing piece, the fixable flaw, and the adjustment that might make everything work. But Virgo is ruled by Mercury, okay? It's just communication and thought. There's no action behind it, okay? Some situations are not asking for another fucking improvement plan. This is not work. You don't need to put it on PIP. They're asking to be complete. The new moon in your 11th house suggests that leaving the old environment creates space for a different community and future. You may not immediately know where you're going. That doesn't mean that you are supposed to remain where your spirit has already left. Uranus in your 10th house is sextile in Neptune in your 8th and trine in Pluto in your 6th. Career, shared resources, emotional trust, health, work, daily routines are transforming together. A professional shift may require you to change how you manage your time or depend on others. A health or workload issue may make it impossible to continue operating at the same pace. Now, the moon enters Virgo on Thursday, bringing a message directly into your body and emotions. You may receive confirmation that you cannot keep ignoring what feels misaligned. So your advice is this: stop offering life support to situations that Spirit has already pronounced complete. Pack your wisdom and go. Okay. When it comes to my Libra, risings, the Cancer new moon activates your 10th house of career, reputation, visibility, purpose, leadership, achievement, and the direction your life is taking. You may be reconsidering a professional decision, returning to an old career idea, maybe revisiting a public project, or recognizing that your definition of success has changed. Mercury retrograde in the 10th house can also bring delays, edits, technical issues, former employees, past professional contacts, or conversations about your public role. Do not assume that hold on, got to make sure. Okay. Do not assume that every delay is a denial. Some delays are giving you time to correct something before it becomes permanently attached to your name, right? Now, Monday's moon, Saturn square falls across your career and relationship houses. A partner, client, contract, or another person's expectations may conflict with your professional needs, right? You may also need to decide whether an agreement supports your future or merely keeps somebody else comfortable, right? Now, Venus in your 12th house also squares Uranus in your 9th house. Hidden private relationships, unconscious patterns, travel, education, publishing, legal matters, and belief systems may become unpredictable. Something you learn could completely change how you view a private situation. Now you receive 2 oracle messages, observer and time to go. Okay. Which is loud as hell. That's a loud ass combination. Okay. Observer is asking you to step outside of your immediate emotional realization and view the situation from a higher, like a higher perspective, right? Stop staring at the one moment that triggered you and look at the entire pattern. What has this person consistently demonstrated? How long has this job felt misaligned? How many times has the same issue been discussed? What happens when you remove hope, fear, chemistry, guilt, and appearances from the equation and actually examine the actual evidence? Okay. Libra can sometimes remain indecisive because you understand multiple perspectives. You see why somebody behaved the way they did. You understand the pressure they were under. You recognize their wounds and intentions and potential, right? That compassion is beautiful, but understanding somebody's behavior does not require you to keep volunteering as its target. Okay. Observer says zoom out. Time to go says once you have observed the truth, stop pretending you need 14 more signs. Okay. Some of y'all don't need another conversation. You need to honor the conclusion produced by the previous conversations. This may involve leaving a job, professional identity, partnership, belief system, educational path, or private dynamic. And because the new moon activates your 10th house, your departure may have something to do with making space for a larger calling. Okay. Spirit may be asking you to stop maintaining a respectable version of your life that looks balanced from the outside, but feels spiritually empty on the inside. Now, Uranus in your 9th house is sextiling Neptune in your 7th and trining Pluto in your 5th. So your beliefs, your partnerships, your creativity, your romance, and self-expression are all evolving. A relationship may change because your worldview changed. A creative path may emerge because you stop trying to be who other people considered appropriate, right? Now, the moon enters Libra on Saturday, putting you back in contact with your own needs. Sunday's moon through Jupiter sextile may bring support from friends, audiences, or your wider community. And so, your advice is this: observe without making excuses, but accept the evidence and stop standing at the exit asking spirit for another reason to leave. Scorpio rising. The Cancer new moon activates your 9th house of faith, spirituality, education, travel, publishing, legal matters, purpose, and your understanding of the bigger picture. You may be revisiting a belief, course of study, travel plans, spiritual practice, legal matter, or an idea you once wanted to share with a larger audience. Mercury retrograde may challenge what you thought you knew. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Because growth sometimes does require realizing that a belief which once protected you, has started limiting you. Chow, it's so hard sitting here doing it straight through. Monday's Venus Uranus square falls across your 11th and 8th houses. Friendships, audiences, long-term goals, shared finances, debts, intimacy, trust, and emotional vulnerability may become unpredictable. Okay. A friend could reveal information that changes your level of trust. A financial obligation could interfere with a future plan. Maybe you recognize that somebody wants access to your energy without accepting the responsibility that comes with genuine intimacy. So your oracle message is why. Scorpio, this week is asking you to examine the motive beneath the motive, right? Why do you want to say what you want? Why are you staying? Why are you leaving? Why does this person's approval matter so much? Why are you committed to receiving an explanation from somebody whose behavior already provided the answer? Why are you interpreting confusion as death? This is not about you asking, or this is not asking you to obsessively investigate everybody else. Scorpio does not need additional encouragement to become a spiritual detective with 37 tabs open. The most important why is your own. Some of you are asking why somebody treated you a certain way because focusing on their psychology helps you avoid asking why you continue participating after the pattern became clear. That is not blame, okay? The behavior belongs to them, but your healing belongs to you. Now, the new Cancer moon in your 9th house can change the story you have attached to a painful experience. Maybe the lesson was not that you cannot trust anybody. Maybe the lesson was that you must stop abandoning your intuition to preserve emotional attachment. Maybe the lesson was not that your dream is impossible. Maybe your original method, teacher, environment, or belief system could not carry you where you were trying to go. Okay? Now, Uranus in your 8th to sextiling Neptune in your 6th and trine Pluto in your 4th. Trust, shared money, health, work, home, family, and emotional foundations are all transforming together. Change in liver environments could affect your finances. A job situation may force you to confront dependency. Emotional healing may require a different daily routine. And the moon moves through your career, community, and private healing houses throughout the week. By the weekend, you may need solitude to interrogate what you have learned. So advice is this: stop using why did they do this to avoid asking why am I still organizing my life around what they did. Whoo, child. I ain't done a super fucking long reading in so long. Sagittarius risings. The Cancer new moon activates your eighth house of shared money, debts, taxes, intimacy, trust, grief, vulnerability, and emotional entanglements and deep transformation. Okay, this is not like child. Hold on. This is not lightweight energy, okay? You may be revisiting a financial agreement, intimate connection, debt allegation, inheritance matter, boundary, or emotional wound, right? Mercury retrograde in your eighth house may bring back a conversation about money or trust. Somebody may owe you something. Maybe you need to renegotiate who's responsible for what. Old grief may also resurface, not because you're moving backward, but because your body finally has enough capacity to process something you previously had to survive. Now, Monday's Venus-Uranus square activates your career and relationship houses. A partner, client, collaborator, or important relationship may behave unpredictably and disrupt a professional plan. Career demands could create tension in a relationship. Somebody may want freedom without acknowledging how their decisions affect the people connected to them. Now, your oracle message is clean it up. And Sagittarius, listen, Spirit is not being metaphorical with all of you, right? Clean the room, answer the email, pay the bill, cancel the subscription, organize the paperwork, address the debt, delete the number, complete the conversation, return what does not belong to you. Stop leaving emotional and practical messes everywhere and then wondering why you cannot access the next chapter. Clean it up speaks to unfinished business, neglected responsibilities, emotional residue, avoidable clutter, and the consequences of repeatedly deal with that later. Later has arrived because this new moon falls in the eighth house. This may involve energy shared between you and somebody else. Maybe you need to stop financially rescuing a person who refuses to become responsible. Maybe you need to clarify the terms of a relationship. Maybe you are still carrying anger, guilt, or shame from something that technically ended but remains emotionally active. You cannot manifest clean energy into a space filled with unresolved agreements. Now, that doesn't mean that you must solve your entire life this week, but it does mean identifying what has remained unnecessarily complicated because you have avoided dealing with it directly. Uranus in your seventh house is sextiling Neptune in your fifth and trining Pluto in your third. Relationships, romance, creativity, communication, and your mindset are all changing. A relationship may require a completely new conversation. A creative project may grow through collaboration, and an unexpected person could challenge whether you normally approach commitment. Now, the moon's movement through Leo and Virgo highlights beliefs in career before entering your friendship house over the weekend. Support may be available, but you need to communicate what you actually need. Then on Sunday, you have the Mars Saturn sextile that can help you establish a relationship boundary or make steady progress on a creative commitment. Your advice is this: stop asking spirit for a clean beginning while leaving your unresolved shit scattered across the doorway. Handle it. Okay, Capricorn rising. The Cancer new moon activates your seventh house of relationships, marriage, dating, clients, contracts, collaboration, and significant one-on-one agreements. This week, this week may bring a relationship reset. Okay, you could revisit a conversation with a partner, reconsider the terms of an agreement, reconnect with somebody, or recognize that your emotional needs within relationships changed. Mercury retrograding in seventh house makes communication especially important. Do not assume that you and the other person have the same understanding simply because a conversation happened. Clarify the expectation, clarify the commitment, clarify who is responsible for what, and make sure the relationship actually exists outside of your creation of it. Now, Monday square Saturn in your fourth house create an tension between relationships and home and family, emotional security, or living arrangements. A partner may have needs that conflict with a family obligation. A relationship decision could affect where you live. Family conditioning may influence how much vulnerability you allow in your partnership. Okay. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be with, say, partnership. It does not necessarily mean, specifically love relationship. It could be any type of partnership or agreement with another person. Okay. So some Capricorn risings learned that love means responsibility. You may feel most secure when you're needed, but being necessary is not the same as being cherished. A person dependent on you does not automatically mean they possess the emotional capacity to love you properly. Venus in your ninth house also squares Uranus in your sixth house, right? Travel, education, spirituality, legal matters, work, health, and daily routines may be unpredictable. Okay. Also, double check where you have Uranus. Double check, okay? Because for me, I'm a Capricorn rising, but Uranus is still in my fourth house. So this is why it's important to get a personal reading and to also know where the trends are affecting you personally in your natal chart, okay? But a schedule change could disrupt a trip or course. A new idea could challenge the way that you organize your daily life. Maybe you realize that your routine cannot support the future you say you want, right? Uranus in your sixth house is sextiling Neptune in your fourth and trining Pluto in your second. Work, health, home, family, money, confidence, security. All of that can be transforming together. Okay. Changing your routine may improve your financial situation. Maybe a home decision could alter your workload. Maybe a new approach to self worth may change the kind of labor you are willing to perform for other people. Midweek, the Leo moon activates intimacy and shared resources, bringing deeper relationship questions to the surface. The Virgo moon then activates your belief, helping you to see the situation from a wider perspective. By the weekend, the Libra moon enters your career house, asking how your relationship decisions support or interfere with the life that you are building. Aquarius rising. The Cancer new moon activates your sixth house of work, health, routines, responsibilities, organization, service, and the practical systems governing your daily life. This is an opportunity to reset your schedule, improve a health habit, reconsider your workload, return to a routine that once helped you, or build a more emotionally supportive relationship with your body. Because Mercury is retrograde, do not rush into an overly complicated system, okay? You don't need 18 planners, 6 apps, or a 4-hour morning routine and a blood oath to become more organized. Now, start with what you can consistently maintain. Monday's Moon Saturn square may create tension between your responsibilities and your mindset, communication, transportation, or immediate environment. A delay or difficult conversation may expose where your schedule has no flexibility. Okay. Venus in your eighth house also squares Uranus in your fifth. Shared finances, intimacy, trust, romance, creativity, children, personal pleasure. All of that could become unpredictable. A romantic attraction could develop suddenly. A creative opportunity may require financial investment. Somebody's desire for freedom may expose an imbalance in emotional or financial responsibility. But your oracle message is blessed. Basically, listen, blessings don't always have to arrive how you want them, right? It may not always be the designer clothes or the big checks, the fancy cars. Like sometimes it's the truth that you didn't want to hear. It's being let out of something you didn't want to be wrapped up in, right? Sometimes it's the routine that finally forces you to take care of yourself. It's sometimes being removed from a situation before it becomes worse, right? Blessed is asking you to recognize where life is working with you and not against you. Some Aquarius risings have become so emotionally independent that receiving support feels uncomfortable. You know how to solve a problem. Okay. You already know how to figure shit out by yourself, right? But do you know how to allow in help? Do you know how to receive love without interrogating it? Do you know how to let a good opportunity develop without emotionally preparing for its collapse later on? This new moon in your sixth house suggests that a blessing may enter through literally everyday shit. It could be work, it could be a client, it could be a health decision, maybe a small habit, a coworker, a schedule change, right? An opportunity to become more consistent. Don't dismiss the small opening because you expected a dramatic miracle. Okay, you also got Uranus and Neptune doing some shit in your fifth and third houses, creativity, romance, communication, all of that. Like, it's just about you expressing yourself more courageously. The more your external life begins reflecting the person that you are becoming, right? Your advice is this: stop assuming that every blessing is secretly a setup. Open your hands, receive the good, and act like you prayed for this shit. Now, for my Pisces risings. The Cancer new moon activates your fifth house of romance, dating, creativity, joy, pleasure, children, confidence, and the things that make life feel worth living, right? This is a beautiful opportunity to reconnect with your heart. You may revisit an old creative project, hear from a former romantic interest, reconsider what you want in dating, or rediscover something that once brought you genuine happiness, okay? But Mercury retrograde means discernment is necessary. An ex returning does not automatically mean a relationship has been spiritually restored. Sometimes they return because Mercury is retrograde and they were bored. It's literally that simple. Okay. Please use your intuition and your discernment and your common sense. Spirit gave you both for a reason. Now, Monday's Moon Saturn square creates tension between joy, creativity, romance, and money or self-worth. You may wonder whether or not you can afford to pursue something that you love. Maybe a romantic interaction could activate insecurity. Maybe you feel guilty for prioritizing pleasure when practical responsibilities remain. Venus in your seventh house also squares Uranus in your fourth house. So relationships, home, family, and living arrangements may experience sudden changes. A person could surprise you. A family situation may affect the relationship. Maybe you realize that somebody is attractive but not compatible with the emotional environment that you're trying to create. The oracle message that we have for you is all that glitters. Everything shiny is not valuable. Everything attractive is not aligned. Everything popular is not successful. Everything that photographs beautifully is not emotionally fulfilling. This week, Spirit wants you to look underneath the surface, okay? Look beyond the appearance, beneath the appearance, right? Somebody may say the right thing, possess the right look, present the right image while lacking the substance needed to build something real. A professional or creative opportunity may look glamorous, but contain unclear terms, hidden labor, or limited long-term value, right? And Pisces, your imagination is one of the greatest gifts, right? You can see beauty, you can see possibilities, symbolism, potential where other people cannot. But the same gift can cause you to fall in love with something, like what something represents instead of what it constantly proves. You can meet somebody and immediately sense the movie, right? The soundtrack, the wedding lights, the spiritual lesson. Meanwhile, you still don't know whether they communicate properly. So slow the hell down, okay? All that glitters does not mean becoming cynical. It means allowing time to reveal substance. The Cancer new moon in your fifth house wants you to experience authentic joy and not perform happiness, chase validation, or attach yourself to something simply because it looks impressive from the outside. Ask yourself whether this makes you feel alive or merely makes you look chosen, okay? Now, Uranus in your fourth house is sextile and Neptune in your second, and Trine and Pluto in your 12th. Home, family, self-worth, money, subconscious patterns, and emotional healing are all transforming. Okay. Maybe a living situation change may affect your finances. Family healing may change the relationships you attract. Recognizing your value may help you realize a private attachment is built on fantasy. The moon moves into Leo and then Virgo, activating your routine and relationship houses. By Friday, a relationship or agreement may require flexibility. Over the weekend, the Libra moon activates intimacy and shared resources, encouraging deeper discernment. Sunday's Mars Saturn sextile helps you make a practical decision involving home, money, or emotional security. Your advice is this: take off the spiritual rose-colored glasses and examine the foundation. Gold does not glitter to prove its value. Okay? So the final collective message is this, okay? That is the energy for all 12 rising signs for the week of July 13th through July 19th, 2026. The overall theme is very clear. Spirit is showing us where an old story is trying to repeat itself, but we are not being placed inside that pattern without power. Now, the disruption at the beginning of the week exposes what is unstable. The Cancer new moon shows us what we emotionally need. Mercury retrograde brings the unfinished conversation or pattern back into awareness. And by the end of the week, Mars and Saturn are asking us to make a mature, practical decision based on what we now understand. So do not waste this week merely noticing the pattern. Change your participation in it, okay? And again, these are collective readings. They are meant to provide guidance for the general energy surrounding each rising sign. But some of y'all already know your situation requires more than a general message, okay? So you have watched your rising sun, moon, Venus, North Node, your mama sign, your ex sign, the sign of the person your ex started dating, and somehow you are even more confused than when you started. That means it's time to stop spiritually window shopping and book the damn reading. Because listen, when you book a damn reading with me, we're focusing on your situation, your questions, your energy, and the guidance Spirit specifically has for you. Okay. Whether you need clarity regarding love, career, finances, your spiritual path, a major decision, or the side you are currently trying to close, go to thealigningsouls.com and choose a reading that aligns with what you need. Don't keep asking Spirit for confirmation while ignoring every available path to clarity. Sometimes booking a reading is the action. Again, thealigningsouls.com. The booking link is in the description and pinned comment. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to Aligning Souls, turn on notifications, and comment your rising sign below, along with the message that hits you the hardest.
Tell me